Shadow Fight 2 has 6 main bosses. Each of them have done terrible things. But it begs the question, whom is the evilest? And in today's ranking, we're going to rank the 6 main demon bosses based off of their wickedness alone, going from kindest to most nefarious. However, before we begin, this list will not contain Titan, as he'd obviously bag the number 1. But speaking of the number 1, stick to the end, because this one might surprise you. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. The least evil and most generous demon boss is Hermit. Unlike the other demon bosses, he doesn't have a nasty attitude or any form of aggression towards the player. He honestly feels like a reflection of Sensei if he had turned evil. Even then, Hermit isn't even that evil, as he clearly sees the player as less of an enemy and more of a student, whom he wants to impart his knowledge to. Really, the only bad thing he's done is try to join forces with other demon bosses to try and destroy him in the Gates of Shadows. Wasp is next on the list, because in many ways she just seems as if she's confused, as after being defeated, she feels lost because Widow promised that after assassinating her father, she'd rule, but of course the player defeats her. Ultimately, she was just a pawn of Widow who fell to her words, thinking that she'd rule and thus ending her father under her influence, which in itself is terrible. However, since she did what she did after being manipulated, she's lower on the list. Lynx is an interesting case, because he's the leader of the Order, which is a group of assassins of course. He's probably assassinated uncountable people just for the sake of money. If you've played Old Wounds, then you'd have known that he showed no mercy attempting to assassinate the prince, and even Sensei when he intervened. To top it off, he's got the ego as large as Titan himself, and truly believes he's the best at what he does and could care less about anyone other than himself, as shown when he insults his own bodyguards for their failures to defeat Shadow, leaving Lynx in the middle of the list. Butcher is usually the most aggressive boss when it comes to personality. However, that's only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to his deeds. You see, his bodyguards are essentially just youngsters who have been taught by Butcher to consider him their messiah. What's worse is he would manipulate them from young ages. For example, he orphaned Bull by assassinating his parents and pretending to be his savior. In fact, a lot of his members are orphan kids who he cultivated to idolize violence in order to make them strong, which in a world of fighting may be true, however his method is atrocious, and combined with his lust for blood, puts him on the top 3. Shogun was the warlord of the Great Ivory City, until he assassinated the prince to seize power and become the ruler of it. He rules Ivory with an iron hand by keeping the city under constant fire that can even be seen while fighting him or his bodyguards, which in itself shows how he doesn't care about the citizens. However, to top it off, he makes sure that anybody who fails him is punished severely, as seen when his bodyguards share their fear of failing him. He's claimed to have conquered countless lands, and due to his demeanor, it's probably safe to say he's ruined those lands as well. However, he's kind of just a worse version of Wasp when it comes to being a pawn to Widow's schemes. Speaking of which, Widow might be a surprise to some. However, it's clear as day when you take a deeper dive into her character. To start off, she was the cause of the entirety of the events in Old Wounds, which led Sensei to meet all the bosses in the first place. Simply because she was rejected by the prince, she manipulated Shogun to attempt to overthrow him, which ultimately ended with the prince being executed and the takeover of Ivory City, engulfing it in flames. When we meet her in Act 5, we found out that 4 out of 5 of her bodyguards are simply under her influence, simply because of her beauty, and have done heinous things under her control. For example, Wolf literally exterminated his whole clan to please her. Which brings me to my final point, which is that she treats all men as her toys to use as she pleases. The damage and destruction she has caused, all due to one rejection, is simply demonic, and easily bags her the title of the evilest boss in Shadow Fight 2. With the exception of Titan, of course. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you for staying to the end. These videos are pretty new to me, and as long as the support continues, I'll keep making content like this, so please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and this is Navy Shadow signing out.